Hey, beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. I guess you can call it a podcast. And we are here today to talk about the Real Housewives of Potomac. This is our show, you guys. It is called Tossing Salads and Spilling, I don't know, probably tea. I can't see the whole thing, but I will have the season and episode in the description. But you guys, I must love y'all because I am watching this again right after it just went off. And I'm telling you, when it's on, my anxiety just be so much going on. Not complaining because I am thoroughly entertained every single time. But I'm afraid if I wait until tomorrow after work to try to get this done, I won't get this done. So let's get started. All right. So we start off exactly where we left off with the tossing of the salad. And then once Mia turns around and walks away, Candiace tosses some little ducks or whatever, like some little ornament type thingies that's on the counter. And I'm just like, girl, you need to calm down. But I feel like I'm going to be saying this a whole lot in this review because Candiace was out of control. And all they kept saying was, you don't know her story. You don't know her story. And she's telling Ashley, you don't know her story. Ashley's like, I do. I've spent more time with her. And at this point, you guys, I am convinced that Candiace does know her story. So then we have Wendy trying to tell Candiace her mother's story. She's like, you don't know her mother's story. And Candiace is just like, I don't care. I don't care. The men see them throwing stuff through the window. They come in. Gia's just standing there looking. Mia comes back saying something about the story. And my whole thing is this. If I were Mia, I'd be like, don't tell her my mom's story. Because if you think she don't know your mom's story and she's already acting a fool like this, what do you think she's going to do once she finds out your mom's story? Candiace goes low all the time, so she is not going to have any sort of empathy or anything about your mom's story. She's going to use it against you. Not to mention the fact that I said already, Candiace already knows, and that's why she keeps yelling out, I don't care, I don't care, because she knows. So Mia comes in and she's like, my mother is a recovering addict, and she picks up this little porcelain bowl or whatever and she breaks it. And I'm like, what was that for? And again, Candiace is yelling, I don't care, I don't care. And she's crying and she's like, you're not going to say anything you want to say to me. And I'm just like, Candiace got anger issues. She needs some help. Something's wrong with Candiace. So Mia tells Candiace that she needs therapy, and I agree. Didn't ever think I would be agreeing with Mia, but yeah, I agree. Candiace needs therapy, and it sucks because I have been on Candiace's team. People have been calling her a spoiled brat forever, and while I do think that, I'm still, I was still riding for her or whatever, but her mouth, and now that, I've always said Candiace's mouth is ridiculous, but this episode, she was on 10 and it made her look so bad. This whole episode was awful for her. But anyway, Mia tells G she's ready to go. She's not about to stay around and be disrespected like that because Candiace then breaks something else. She knocks something else off the counter for no good reason, like just being ridiculous. And there we have it. So back in the kitchen, Karen is asking Candiace, did she know her mom's story? And she's like, I don't care, I don't care. And Karen is like, okay, but did you know the story when you kept saying something about her mom? And she said, at Giselle's, I didn't know anything. And so just like I said before, at Giselle's, she probably didn't know anything. That was just her comeback because it was lame. Oh, your mom's low budget. But I feel like somebody went to her and told her, listen, this is why you shouldn't have said that. So every time she said it during this trip, she knew exactly what she was saying. Yeah, Candiace, not a good look at all. Then she starts saying stuff about Mia breaking stuff. She's breaking things and dishes or whatever. Okay, you're knocking stuff off the counters and everything too. It's just all gone too far. So why are you talking about her doing that when you're doing the same exact thing? So yeah, Eddie and Chris playing pool, and Chris says, where's G? Eddie was like, the pimp was told to get his hoe and leave. And Chris is like, by who? By my wife? Eddie says, I ain't saying no names, but by deductive reasoning, you should know. So back in the kitchen, Ascala asked Candiace, why y'all throwing the salad? I was going to eat the salad. Candiace says, well, she threw it at me. And I'm like, girl, you threw it first. What the heck? Oh, she was so irritating this whole entire episode, y'all. Candiace was impossible. So Candiace tells Ascala, if you got a story about your mom, how do you know I don't have a story about my mom? How do you know I don't have a story about feeling low budget? So Chris comes in the kitchen and he's like, what's happening? And she's like, oh, I'm about to get in trouble. You're about to yell at me. And he's like, yeah, I'm about to yell at you because what are you doing? She's like, she was tossing salad at me. And she said, well, I threw 2 pieces of lettuce at her, but she picked up a whole handful. And Chris said, well, you started tossing salad at her first or whatever. And I'm like, thank you, Chris. Then she starts saying how she should leave and she's a concubine and everything. And I'm like, Candiace, get some more reads. Ma'am, that's all you got on her is that she was a stripper? That's it? That's all you can think of? Her being a stripper and her feet being big? Girl, you got to come with something different. It's just not even funny anymore at all. So he proceeds to take her outside and have a conversation with her. Candiace is... and I have never said it before, even though everybody else has, but Candiace is like a child. Like, she's ridiculous. And unfortunately, she has zero respect for Chris because he is unable to calm her down. And you guys, I think that's huge in a relationship. If you are unable to calm somebody down, then they have no respect for you. Because if you respect someone, when they tell you to calm down or they're trying to talk to you in a reasonable way, you are going to listen. If you don't respect them, then you're not. That's just my thought. So Karen takes Mia into the parlor, we'll call it, and she tells her, listen, don't forget who you are. You are someone that don't ever let someone make you feel small or cheap. Mia starts crying and saying, no, I don't feel that way, but she just doesn't want to be taken out of character. And she's like, somebody that is that ruthless can take her there. And you guys, I don't know if y'all watch James Caldwell, but he called it when he said Mia is ghetto fabulous. I'm sorry, don't forget where she came from. I feel like Mia probably can fight as well. So I feel like Candiace probably should stop at some point before she end up, taking this woman to the edge. And I also feel like she's doing everything in her power, Candiace is. She's giving out these little shots. She's saying any little thing she can because she's not ruffling Mia's feathers enough. And she wants to get to her so bad. The men are talking to G and G says, listen, I didn't want to come anyway. So I can leave or stay, whatever my wife want to do. I don't care. So he says, listen, if she says she want to stay, then she'll stay. But if she says go, we go. I don't care. So all the other ladies are in there talking to Mia, and she's crying, saying how, since she was little, she had to take care of herself. Her mom was never really a mother to her. And I'm like, girl, bring it back around. Like, where are we going with this? That's not where we're trying to go. But she says she's worked her butt off to get back to where she is. And her sobriety means everything. She said her mom told her it's hard for her to be sober. She thinks about it every day or whatever. So if she sees something like this going on and someone talking about her and it messes with her sobriety, she's going to be real pissed off. So Candiace is still outside telling Chris how, Mia's not going to say whatever she wants to say to her because she just says anything to anyone and she's not going to get away with it. She wanted smoke, so I gave her smoke. And I'm like, she has not learned about inviting someone to smoke. You can't handle the smoke, Candiace. You can't. Because as soon as somebody lay hands, you calling the police or something. Like, you cannot handle the smoke. Stop talking like you're bad. And the funny thing is, I think she really feels like she won this whole thing with Monique because she's still on the show and Monique isn't. However, when it comes down to the actual fight and the laying on of hands, no ma'am, you did not win that fight, so you should stop. But anyway, Wendy and all the rest of the ladies still in there talking to Mia. And Escala says, well, when you call her video low budget, then that just really hit a nerve. That wasn't nice. And she's like, okay, well, let's talk about it because it really was low budget. And Escala is like, that's hard. That's a little harsh for you to say. And she's like, no, when I was starting my company or whatever, I was low budget as well. Like, I was trying to preserve the coins. However, now I make $450,000, and everybody just like rolled eyes, especially Escala. And she said, Jesus, Mia. She's like, why do you always talk about money and business and everything? And she's like, does this have something to do with where you came from? And now you're so happy that you have money? And I was like, yes, Escala, you better say that shit. Because it's true. And she's like, no, that has nothing to do with it. So Escala says, listen, can we for the rest of the trip not talk about money and finances and business? So now back in the hallway, Wendy talks to G and them and tells them to stay. Karen is there as well. Wendy walks away. Karen is talking to Mia and G, and Mia touches Karen's hair. and gives her like a little, a little stroke of her hair or whatever. And then G says, "Why you look so good, girl?" and stick out his tongue. And I was like, ew. But Karen was a good sport about the whole thing. She took it all in stride. She was like, "I'm gonna tell Ray you licking your tongue out," and he just kept doing it, looking disgusting. And in her confessional, she's like, "You are talking to the ambassador of Surrey County. Have some respect." But she was just like, "G's crazy," and it's funny. Mia was laughing, so he didn't mean anything. He's just disgusting and creepy. G is just creepy. So Ashley comes up to talk to G and Wendy and Mia in the hallway, and they're telling her, what happened. And then G says, "Yeah, I met you in the strip club. I didn't meet you on the street." And he says, "At first you were a waiter or waitress, and then you were an entertainer." And he says, "I used to give you money to just sit and talk." And Mia's like, 10 grand for 2 hours. And Ashley in the confessional is like, 10 grand for 2 hours just to talk, huh? I'm saying that's a lot of money. And Ashley is so freaking messy and two-faced and everything. She is just smiling all in this woman's face. And then in her confessional, she's shady as all get out. I still don't see it for Ashley. Don't like, I said I'm not going to say don't like. Not about her. Not here for her at all. But I will say, every time they show her in this confessional, God, that tan looks good on her. She looks so much better with a tan. So Chris is in the kitchen cleaning up after his child, and Ashley's in there. You guys, I just really like, he's fussing the whole time he's doing it though. Like, dang, why I gotta clean up and this and that. But Ashley comes in the kitchen, and Chris is like, "Listen, Ashley, I just want to say, I know you and Candiace don't get along, and me and Michael don't get along. However, I still follow you on," he said, "the Instagram." "And I just want to say congratulations on baby number 2. Motherhood looks good on you." And I'm like, that's so classy, Chris. That's really big of him, because Michael, he would never. And of course, Ashley appreciates it and says, "That's very nice, Chris. Thank you." But then she goes into the whole, "Your wife called me wide, and I didn't appreciate that, but she is who she is." And he's like, she uses a lot of adjectives. And my whole thing is, Ashley, that was not the time for that. He gave you a compliment. He said something nice. Just say thank you and shut the hell up. She doesn't know how, because she's ridiculous as well. Ashley is so freaking messy. So Karen, Ascala, Wendy, and Ashley are in Ashley's room talking about everything that's happening. And Wendy's like, "I'm ready to go home." She says, "Since I've been here, I haven't even been here an hour. There's salad tossing, tongues rolling in the back of their head and everything." And she's like, "It's just too much." Ascala comes in and she's just like, "Listen, when me and my girls go out, we like to have fun. We don't do all this arguing." Karen says, "I'm telling you, because I can toss my salad at home." And they start laughing. Ascala says, "Karen, you can't toss your own salad." So apparently Karen does not know that has another meaning. They tell her what it means, and they are all very vulgar with with it. And Karen is like, no. She starts screaming, and she gets up and she's like, "I'm getting married again, no." And in the confessional, Ashley is like, "All right, so this video or this review is gonna run kind of long, because I am not even halfway through and I'm already at 13 minutes. But Mia calls her mom. Her mom is doing fine with the kids, and then all of a sudden Gordon G is knocked out. And I'm like, yeah, because he's drunk as all get out. Ashley tries to call Michael, and of course it does not go through. Why does that happen to her every single time? So as if the day could not get any worse, who pulls up? The Green-Eyed Bandits. And they come in. Chris greets them. He's very nice. They say, "Hey," very nice or whatever. But I don't know. I just feel like Robin was a little rude when he was saying, "Oh, I'm just playing pool, waiting on everyone," or whatever. She's like, "Yeah, where's the bathroom?" And I'm like, ugh, Robin is just ill, period. And Giselle asked if he could help her get upstairs with her bags because her foot is broke. And he's like, "Okay." So she gives him the suitcase, and then she says, "Oh yeah, can you do this one too?" And I'm like, all this shit you talk about Chris behind his back and him leeching off Candiace and everything. And the funny part is Candiace tells him everything. So for him to still be nice enough to do it without a blink of an eye, I really like Chris. And I really don't like these girls. They're just, ugh. So Chris takes her to a room that has 3 beds and a crab cake on it. And I don't know why Skylar left a crab cake just on the bed. Like, why would you do that? That's disgusting. But she's like, what's going on here? And she's like, well, where's Robin gonna sleep? And he's like, I guess in here. I'm like, damn, it's 3 beds in there. She can't sleep in that room. And she's like, where's the bathroom? Chris is like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what's going on here. So Candiace sees Robin and she jumps on her and has her pick her up like a kid, like a child, once again, Candiace. And she's so happy to see them. And I'm like, Candiace, these girls are not your friends. For some reason, she really feels like Giselle and Robin are her friends, and they are not. So Candiace goes in the room with Giselle and Robin, and she's telling them what happens, and of course she's telling it from her side. And I threw 2 pieces of lettuce at her, and she threw this whole salad at me and broke glass. She broke glass, but she didn't tell how she was tossing everything around too. And then she, gets back to the point of her saying her stuff was low budget, so she said something about her mom. Giselle is like, yeah, that's no good, and I was going to talk to you about that. And she's like, no matter what, we don't talk about moms. And Candiace is like, yes, we do, because y'all talk about my mom all the time. And Giselle says there's a difference between talking about someone's mom and coming for their mom. And she's like, you were coming for her mom. And as much as I cannot stand Giselle, I have to agree with her on that. She was not coming for your mom. She was talking to your mom, and she was doing too much. She really was, but she wasn't talking about your mom. So Giselle tells Candiace that she heard Mia was crying, like uncontrollably really crying. And Candiace is like, really? Was she? Like, she was surprised, but she was actually delighted because that is what she wanted from her. But in her confessional, she says, oh, if I knew about her mama trauma, I would have just talked about her big ass feet or hands. I wouldn't have talked about her mom. And I'm like, that's a lie, because you knew it this day. She knew ahead of time. Again, she didn't know it the first time like she told Karen, but she knew during this trip, she knew, and she was still doing it. Candiace, I cannot have your back anymore because I don't see it for you any longer. Like, I am just not about her. And I really was riding for her. So Wendy comes in and she's like, oh, hey, thank you guys for coming. And Giselle is like, oh, look who has a smile. I haven't seen that in forever. However, she's not smiling and Robin's not smiling. So then Wendy makes it super phony. You can tell. She's just like, oh, okay, well, thank you for being here. I don't blame Wendy one bit. Later for these girls. So Giselle is like, oh yeah, it's great to have us here. Where's the bathroom? And she's like, oh, it doesn't have a bathroom? Giselle says, do you see one? And I was just like, bitch. Because I'm sorry, that just came out automatically. And I said it out loud when I was watching the freaking show. And Wendy was like, shit, I don't know. And you guys, I died and got my life off this whole entire part because look at karma and just look at the universe. They did not want Wendy. She did not want Wendy to use her bathroom in her house. And now you have no bathroom to use in this house. Oh my God. When I tell y'all, I got my life laughing at the fact that she has no bathroom. And Wendy was just like, yeah, go downstairs. And they showed her broke foot. No one cares, Giselle. Y'all, Robin looked a hot ass frumpy mess in her cheetah girl outfit and her big ass gym shoes. She looked a hot mess. And she's on the phone trying to find a hotel because her princess Giselle has a broken foot and she can't go downstairs. No, she can't do that. Not to mention, she tells us because she has just been so extra nasty this season. Actually, this whole show has been off the hook with the I don't know, just being very vulgar and everything is so sexual and just so extra. But she lets us know that it's her time of the month and she just feels gross and doesn't want to be around anybody. And I can understand that. So you just should have stayed home, dumbass. So Giselle is saying how Wendy failed. Wendy failed again because this is a host problem and you're supposed to take care of your guests and make it right. And I'm like, weren't you the host at that party saying that your guests could not even use your bathroom? Oh, yeah, when I tell y'all I got a kick out of this whole entire situation, I really did. Every time she talked about not having a bathroom, I laughed. So they're all getting in the Sprinter for dinner, and when I tell you everybody else looked decent except, you guessed it, Giselle and Robin. I would love to make a joke out of what they had on. However, I have no idea. I just know Robin had on this headband, and uh, listen, she just cannot get it right with her stiff braids, and now she just has this tiny ponytail, and she just looks a mess. Robin should have stayed at home, but she always looks a mess. So, what can you do? So in the Sprinter, Mia and Candiace had to sit next to each other. Oh, look at God. God works in mysterious ways. With this whole thing and in the bathroom thing, God works in mysterious ways. In the words of my mother, I know she didn't make that up, but still, my mama said it. So in the Sprinter, they talk about G being asleep, and of course, because he's drunk as all hell. And Karen and Ashley are telling Giselle how he licked his tongue out. She's like, he tried to lick you? No, he stuck his tongue out. So they did the whole tongue thing. Then they get into teabagging, and she's in her confessional, Giselle, talking about how nice it is to be kikiing with Karen. So yeah, it's so funny. They were talking about teabagging, and Karen, of course, did not know what it was. So Giselle had to tell her. She's in the confessional, like, they're talking so familiar about their tea bags. So you know they do it. And she had some tea, and she's like, this is the only tea bag I know. And Ashley was so hype when Giselle was talking about it. She's like, oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. I was like, Jesus, she definitely does it. But Karen says, listen, I'm done with all these lessons for the night. Don't tell me nothing else. And she says, but I'm not as done as Robin. And when she says that, they show Robin. She's sitting kind of up front, turned towards everyone. And Chris is like, Robin, you all right? She goes, I'm on my period. Just to the whole Sprinter full of men and women. She has no class whatsoever. Robin is like a dude. I swear to God, she just really is. Ugh. So they get to the restaurant, and yeah, they are all overdressed except Giselle and Robin. I guess they got it right this time. People in there in shorts, gym shoes. Yes, it's a cute little place, but they were overdressed. So they sit down, and Wendy's trying to get everyone's attention, and G just kind of whistles. You know how men back in the day used to know how to whistle with their mouth? My cousins Van and Victor, that was their thing, especially Van. Oh my God. All this whistling with his mouth. But anyway, G does that in the restaurant and stops everyone. Everyone just turns around and they're like, was that G? G is off the chain. So Wendy gives her little announcement saying she's glad everyone came. She hopes everyone has a good time. And she tells them that, now granted, they're here having oysters and everything tonight. But she says tomorrow we're going on a boat, and then we're going to have dinner at the house, and we're going to have a crab boil. And I'm like, more seafood, okay. But I mean, everybody seemed happy about it, so all right. So at dinner, they ordering, and y'all, Ashley ordered another Corona. She throwing back them Coronas. How many Coronas can you drink while still pumping? I don't know. She was throwing back them Coronas. But anyway, she's telling Giselle about these guys behind them that's looking, guy in a blue vest, bunch of white guys. And Giselle is like, no thanks, because I'm crippled right now. And I'm like, no thanks, Ashley, because you do that. Okay, you keep your preference. But not everyone prefers to go that way. So no thanks. So the waitress then brings shots, and they're like, what's going on? And she's like, this table of gentlemen behind you brought you all shots. And they're like, yay, thanks for the shots. Karen is like, these women don't need any more shots. Y'all, everybody there seems pretty lit. Well, Dre, Ascala's husband, looks out of it for sure. We know G is super lit, and yeah, apparently Karen thinks all the women are lit as well. But Dre looks out of it. So then we find out the men at the table, they have wives at another table, and they're like, why didn't you buy us shots? So now that's a big deal. It was pretty funny, but Wendy ends up saying, listen, I'll buy the wives some shots or whatever they want. And then Karen gets up and she goes over and she's like, you guys bought us shots, but I'm about to get married again to Ray. And I'm like, people don't know Ray. Karen, they don't know Ray. And she's like, you guys need to buy these ladies some handbags and make it right and all that. Okay, cute little scene before we get to the bullshit. So then, out of nowhere, Ashley says, "Oh, Chris, I have to ask you, how do you feel about everything that happened today?" And Giselle is like, "Good question." But then in the confessional, she's like, Ashley, we were doing so good." And I'm like, "No, you're happy she asked that because y'all both one and the same." And Chris is like, "No, I didn't like it. That's why I took her outside." And she's like, "Yeah, I heard you cursed her out." He's like, "Yeah, I did because, it wasn't cool." And they're like, "Oh, good thing you did." So Chris talks about how, him and G are still in a good place, even though Mia and Candiace are doing their thing. And he's like, "Listen, at some point I would like to get to a good place with Michael where you and Candiace cannot like each other, but we still just be like, it's cool, it's whatever." And I'm like, why would you want to be friends with Michael? He's a dirtbag. He is scum. Why would you even want to be friends with him? But anyway, Ashley is like, "Yeah, but he has some issues with the way you live your life as well because you said some things." And Chris is like, "I've never said anything about Michael." And she's like, "Oh, yes, you have." So then they go back to the reunion where all Chris said was Michael has said some disrespectful things to the ladies. And to me, that's not bad. And it's true. He has. So again, Chris reiterates that he has never said anything bad about Michael. And she's like, "Well, yeah, but your wife has, and that's the problem." And Candiace is like, "Yeah, what I have said is in response to stuff that Michael has said." So, of course, they're going back and forth about this whole Michael thing. Who cares? Who cares about Michael? Who cares about Ashley? At this point, who cares about Candiace? So Candiace points out how Michael has called Chris white trash. And Ashley is like, "What have you said about Michael? You called him a slave driver." And she said, "I've never called him a slave driver." And then they show in the, I guess in her tweet or whatever, she called him an overseer. But then she says, "Listen, he drives his slaves. It's fine." And Ashley's like, "Are you calling me a slave?" So then she's like, "Are you calling me a slave?" And she's like, "Bitch, you something." Couldn't even make out what she was saying, but she starts going off. Chris is trying to calm Candiace down, but again, Candiace has zero respect for Chris, so she's like physically going back and forth with him, where he's like, "Come on and get up and go out," trying to move her from the situation. And she's like, "I don't need to leave. I don't need to leave." So Ashley tells Candiace, "You have no idea how to be a civil human being." And Chris looks up and says, "And if we're going to be real, neither does your husband." And Giselle is like, "Oh, God." And then Ashley says, "I'm not talking to you anymore. I'm not talking to you." So then Ashley goes into how you put your hand all up in Mia's face and you said something about what happened last year, like you learned absolutely nothing. So of course then we have to have a flashback of the whole Candiace and Monique debacle. And in the confessional, Ashley is like, the common denominator here is Candiace in both situations, and she's always playing victim. Unfortunately, now I have to really, really agree with her. So then Ashley points out, "Listen, you were a part of everything that happened last year, and it was very traumatic. We all were involved." And she says, "You played a major part in what happened last year, and I will never talk to you about it." She told her she's a foul, fucked up individual because of that. All right, y'all, so I jumped ahead. This is where Chris was trying to take her out and calm her down, and she refused to go. So he walks out, and everybody's like, and Ashley and them telling him, "Chris, sit down. Chris, sit down. Who are you talking to? How are you going to tell him to sit down?" But anyway, Candiace no longer wants to talk to Ashley. She's like, "Yeah, I'm done with you." And she's like, "You don't worry about my husband," because she's telling her, "You need to go check on your husband." And Candiace is like, "Where's your husband? Is he at home? Is he at a strip club?" And she says, "Turn on your find a friend, bitch. Where's your man?" But anyway, Dre goes out to talk to Chris and bring him back in. Chris is just over it. He's like, "Man, this happens every single time. Every time." So back at the table, Wendy is like, "What happened to GVO?" And Candiace says, "Respectfully, GVO nothing," or something she says. And she's like, "Ashley can suck my dick." And they're all like, "You don't have one." But everybody's just like, "Oh my God." Again, them being vulgar just out of nowhere. These women and the way that they speak in front of men, nothing that I've ever seen. For real, for real. Ashley says, "You don't have a dick. You may have an oversized clit, but you don't have a dick." And she's like, "No, that's your friend," talking about Mia. So she just brings any chance to talk about Mia. Listen, one thing you cannot say about Candiace is quick-witted. She really is. She got some comebacks, but most of them are about the same exact thing, which makes them lame. But yeah, they're just doing way too much to have men in the room. All right, so let's wrap it up. So Karen tells Ascala and Candiace, because they start doing some little bit of back and forth. Karen says, "Listen, the next finger that is in my face, I'm gonna bite it, and that goes for you and you. I don't care." So Candiace gets up to finally go find her husband and bring him back, and that's pretty much the end. We'll see what happens next week. If you are still here, I appreciate you. You are my real MVP. Thank you so much for listening. And if you have yet to subscribe, please do like, comment, hit the notification bell so that you can be aware of when I upload. And again, I appreciate all my new subbies. I appreciate you guys that continuously come back. And I will see you guys in the next video. Smooches.